DreamHack Winter may have been the best Overwatch tournament to date. Honestly, it was an extremely fun tournament to watch. It took place over the course of the last weekend, and it was some of the most dynamic and best pro Overwatch I have ever seen. In today's video, we're going to be talking about what happened, not just reviewing what happened in the games and who won, but what it really means for Overwatch and what new strategies and things we saw in this tournament. It goes without saying that there will be spoilers in this video, so if you don't want it to be spoiled and you don't want to know who won, come back to this video at a later time. But for now, let's talk about DreamHack Winter. So first and foremost, what was the most common team composition and which heroes were we seeing most in this tournament? Well, for one, tanks kind of dominated, at least in popularity. Reinhardt was picked in 91% of games, and then Roadhog was picked in 60%, Diva in 57%, Zarya in 34%, and Winston in 14%. This is a lot for these tanks. It was very common to see 3 tanks on a team, and many teams actually ran 4. They'd run either 3-2-1, 3 tanks, 2 supports, and 1 DPS, or 4 tanks and 2 supports, because they really valued durability over damage, and what they would do is always take a Roadhog as one of their tanks, so they weren't really lacking on damage, because Roadhog does a lot. As far as supports go, Lucio was seen in 97% of games. Lucio was a must-have in this tournament. Ana was seen about 61% of the time, and Zenyatta 42% of the time. Mercy and Symmetra were both not seen. Mercy was not seen a single time, and I think Symmetra was picked once over the course of the whole tournament, and not even for like a whole game. I think it was maybe a one-hold scenario, and the team was getting desperate and really wanted to try something new. But it didn't work. Symmetra was switched off of very quickly, and we didn't see either of those supports very much. With all these tanks running around, you'd probably think Reaper would be a pretty good pick in this tournament. I mean, the guy shreds tanks. However, he was not. Reaper was seen in only 2.5% of games. He was basically not involved in the tournament at all. Who took Reaper's place? Well, it was Soldier 76 mainly, along with Tracer and Mei. When teams did run DPS heroes, Tracer was very commonly seen, Mei was very commonly seen, and Soldier 76 was extremely commonly seen. Oftentimes, these 3 heroes being seen on both offense and defense. They didn't really care that Tracer is better on attack. They used her on defense as well. It seemed very interesting, and it really showed that I think Tracer is pretty powerful right now, as well as obviously Soldier 76 and Mei. But what do these picks mean for the meta? What does this actually show? Well, before we go over that, we need to discuss one thing: the outlier. The team that didn't follow the rules. The team that ran triple DPS and ended up winning the tournament with it. Team Misfits. Yes, Team Misfits defied all meta predictions we saw so far. Honestly, these guys went rogue, and it paid off for them very well. They ran triple DPS, 2 supports, and only 1 tank. Probably the first team to do this competitively and win a major LAN tournament doing so. So props to these guys. What exactly did Team Misfits run, and is it better than the compositions that every other team in the tournament ran, which were 4-2, 3-2-1, or the standard 2-2-2 that we've seen since the beginning of the game? Well, they ran some really interesting compositions. One of them I like to call kind of a super dive composition, although I'm not sure that's the proper name for it. They ran Tracer and Genji, Winston, Zenyatta, Lucio, and their last pick, Widowmaker. An extremely interesting composition. You have Genji and Tracer as well as Winston, who can all dive the enemy backline and take out some people really fast. I mean, these guys can tear anyone to shreds, even tanks to shreds, if they all really focus on him. And then you have Zenyatta sitting in the back with his Orbs of Discord, just kind of orchestrating who dies by placing an Orb of Discord. Everyone goes on that person, and Widowmaker finishes off any stragglers and also gets picks at the same time. This composition was pretty crazy, and what's most surprising about it is that it worked extremely well against tank-heavy compositions. They used it a few times against 4 tank compositions, the 4-2 team composition, and they used it a lot against 3-2-1. and it worked. They didn't even have to dive the squishies. There were times they just dived tanks, and the tanks would go down, because with Orbs of Discord being placed, Widowmaker does a lot of damage to tanks. It's actually 390 damage for a headshot from Widowmaker when someone is discorded. That is over 50% of every tank's health bar, and if they can't get to safety, Widowmaker just hits them with another one, and they're dead. That's it. It's over. Widowmaker's got the pick. Not to mention, Widowmaker can land shots on non-tanks as well and take them all out instantly. So when a composition is running 4 tanks, there are still 2 people that Widowmaker can definitely bully, and these Widowmakers did, and they worked very well. In one game, it got so bad with Widowmaker on Misfits, Fnatic, who was in the final match against them, had to switch to their own Widowmaker just to try to deal with Misfits Widowmaker, and it didn't even work. They did not know how to counter this composition. This composition worked so well on attack, it even worked sometimes on defense. Nobody knew how to deal with it, and that's what makes this whole thing quite interesting. We saw in almost all of the tournament at least 3 tanks run, a lot of times even 4 tanks run, and this one composition goes ahead and wins it, which is the complete opposite. 3 DPSs and only 1 tank. It really makes you wonder which composition is actually better. If I had to wager my own opinion here, I would say that the tank composition does work better in most scenarios. Misfits may have made this composition and tailored it against the tank composition, and nobody really knew how to deal with it because nobody has run triple DPS consistently so far. So I'm going to go ahead and say Misfits definitely planned this out, and they definitely knew what they were doing against tank compositions. They had definitely practiced and known the weaknesses of tank comps, and they used this composition to counter it. I do not think this new composition will become the meta composition, because I think their 3 DPS composition would probably not do as well if the enemy team saw it coming. They'd definitely be able to prepare probably a 2-2-2 composition to deal with it, because that's a lot more versatile. It's very standard and people know how to use it, and probably would know how to use it against a 3 DPS composition. The weaknesses of that 3 DPS composition are quite obviously lack of shields and lack of HP. The way this composition worked is they went hard, while Widowmaker and Zenyatta sat in the back and did damage from far away. So it really split the enemy team's attention up. They didn't know how to focus Misfits down. When you focus the Widowmaker too hard, the rest of the team will kill you. When you focus the divers that are right up in your face too hard, Widowmaker can get some easy picks. So it really splits up the composition. I think a counter to this definitely needs to be a more unified and defensive team composition. 3 tanks or 4 tanks is definitely super defensive, but when I say defensive, I don't just mean in health, I mean in counter, like retaliation. Tanks don't have a lot of range. They can't do much against Widowmaker. So when you're running a lot of them, you have like no threat to the Widowmaker. There was one game where Misfits ran Widowmaker, and there was not a single hero on Team Fnatic's side that could really do anything about her. There were only 2 heroes that could even damage her. It was Lucio and Zenyatta. Neither of them can really contest a Widowmaker, especially from very far away. So when you're running this Widowmaker against this composition, it's going to tear people apart. And Misfits knew that, and they did it very well. In the end, we still are in a tank meta, I would wager, I would say. But what Misfits did is show us that triple DPS can work. New compositions are being formed, and they maybe could be even seen in this patch. I'm not too convinced of it. I still think we're going to see a very tank heavy meta until the next patch hits, which probably nerfs the tanks even more, but I am excited to see what pro teams have to offer, because this is the first time this has been run and used successfully. So I bet you a lot of pro teams, if not every pro team, is now opening their eyes and saying, all right, what can we do with more DPS heroes? What can we do that Misfits did to win a major LAN tournament? I'm not too sure what that is. Only time will tell, but for now, let's go over a few more minor details about the tournament that are, I think, meta related. Roadhog was the reason that triple and quad tank could be run. His damage, as well as his health, seems just too powerful right now. To be able to one-shot more than 50% of the heroes in the game means enemy teams are also going to be running non-one-shottable heroes. So when one team's running a Roadhog, you're encouraging the other team to run more tanks as well, because Roadhog's hook combo can just kill so many heroes, and he doesn't even have to put himself in that much danger to do it because of his 600 HP health pool that he can heal back up after he kills someone. So I think Roadhog right now seems a tad overtuned. Okay, overpowered. Let's not try to skirt around the point. He looks a tad overpowered right now, at least in the pro scene, but it's not just him. There's one other hero that enables this tank heavy composition, and it's Ana. Ana has extremely high burst healing at almost no cost. She has extremely high burst healing when she nades someone and then just simply heals them. She can deal like 400 healing in 1 second or something crazy like that. That shouldn't exist. This allows tanks to be far too greedy with their play and their health pool just to get out safely. A tank should not be able to jump right into an enemy team but make it out alive because Ana was burst healing him so much, and that is potentially why we're seeing so many tanks. I'm not going to say Ana needs to be nerfed, but I think she needs to be tweaked because right now she can sustain heal because she has 10 rounds in her magazine, and whenever she needs to start burst healing, she just throws that grenade and keeps on healing. There's no downside to her healing. Like, Lucio is always slow sustained healing. Zenyatta, slow sustained healing. Mercy is fast sustained healing, I would say, but Ana is all of them. Ana can sustain heal, she can burst heal, and there's really no downside to it. So I think Ana should be tweaked to the point where either she's a burst healer or a sustained healer, not both. Speaking of supports, Mercy wasn't seen at all. Zero times Mercy was played. I thought she was weak before this tournament happened, and I guess the pros agreed with that because they didn't even touch her. They didn't even consider her. Even after her buffs, which allow her to sustain in battle a little bit better, she is still not seen. And, you know, she might be fine in lower levels of play right now. We don't need to balance the game just for the highest level of play, although it should be considered. Mercy right now feels pretty weak. A good flanker can still take her out with ease because she can't defend herself at all. Not sure what Blizzard needs to do with this one, but I still think Mercy should be on their radar for potential buffs. One hero that I don't think should be on their radar for potential buffs that other people do is Soldier 76. Everyone seems to think Soldier is OP right now, but the only reason you think he's OP is because tanks are OP, and he can shred tanks. He counters the current meta. When tanks are out of the meta and you're running 3 DPS heroes, Soldier is not as good because Widowmaker can one-shot him, McCree can usually win that duel if the McCree is a good player, and then Tracer and Genji can both deal with him as well. So I think Soldier right now only seems good because tanks are good. Other than that, he's pretty well balanced. Hopefully this was helpful to you all. Hopefully you enjoyed it and you learned something new about Overwatch or the pro scene. If you did, be sure to leave a like down below. Those help me out a lot. And stay tuned for my Widowmaker Ultimate Guide later in the week, guys. I'm working on finishing it up here very soon. See you guys all later. Lone Hawk out.